Forget about Donald Trump. Why did Fox News edit out the words a day ago? I'm asking that as the judge.
I don't know, but they made a choice for time.
Welcome to the Two Angry Men podcast. Mark, I am obsessed with this lawsuit that Gavin Newsom just filed against Donald Trump. It is everything. It's got law. It's got intrigue. It's got betrayal. But it's amazing. It is. Can I tell you? I have it in front of me. I want to tell you all the specifics because we got to talk about this. Okay.
I absolutely. And by the way, for those who, unfortunately, it's a very short number of or a small number of people. If you had seen the lead up to this, it was almost worth the price of admission. But let's talk about the lawsuit.
We'll talk about the lawsuit. Okay. So, Gavin.
First of all, for those who don't know, Gavin Newsom filed a lawsuit in Delaware for, guess how much, Harvey?
For the exact amount that Dominion settled for. 700, I've got it here. I believe it's
787 million, which is
and so it's a defamation lawsuit against Fox News Channel. So obviously I say this at my own peril because TMZ
I was going to say you.
Well, we're separate from Fox News, but we are part of Fox. Nonetheless, the law is the law, and I want to go into this because it's fascinating. So
it really is. So by the way, I don't know the lawyers involved. Do you know the lawyers? Because I looked today, and in neither one, there's two firms, and neither one I'm familiar with. Not to say
I don't. I spoke to one of them briefly today.
Which one?
Michael. What is his last name? Oh, come on. Let me get into the lawsuit, please. This is what people.
Okay, let's go.
This is what people want to know. Okay, so on Gavin Newsom had a phone call, a late night phone call with Donald Trump, early Eastern time on June 7th, and they talked.
We believe.
No, we know.
Donald,
no, we know, and I'll tell you why we know in a bit. But we know because there happens to be a phone record that Donald Trump produced to John Roberts of Fox News showing there was a June 7th call. Okay?
Correct.
So we know there is a June 7th call.
But you're already kind of stepping on the lead.
No. I got to explain this to make sense of it. So on June 7th, Gavin Newsom has a call with Donald Trump. Again, it's actually June 6th on the West Coast, but June 7th on the East Coast. So we'll use East Coast. During that call, according to Gavin Newsom, it was civil. Newsom wanted to bring up the protests against the immigration officials in L.A. At the time, on June 7th, there hadn't been disturbances. Those disturbances occurred beginning June 8th, the next day. But there were protests, and there was a lot of anger over what immigration officials were doing. So they have a 20-minute call. According to Newsom, he wanted to bring up some of the immigration issues, but Trump was deflecting it, he says, and talking about other things. But he says it was a civil call. Then on the 8th and the 9th.
Can we point out the fact that these two gentlemen do have...
They hate each other.
Yes, and the former wife of Gavin Newsom, Kimberly
Guilfoyle,
who I have known since she was a very able deputy DA in LA County before she kind of went on to marry the...
I think she was actually San Francisco County because she came down here for the Pitbull case.
She did come down for the Pitbull case, but before San Francisco, she was
a deputy before that, right? Okay.
In the Inglewood Municipal Court, and I had cases against her.
So they were married, they got divorced. She ended up engaged to Donald Trump Jr., and they broke off the engagement, and now she's an ambassador.
And just fun fact, she's now the
ambassador
to Greece.
Yeah. So So June 7th, they have this call. On June 10th, Donald Trump is in the Oval Office, and a reporter asks him, when was the last time you spoke to Gavin Newsom? Donald Trump says a day ago, meaning June 9th. And he has some harsh words. He says, basically, you're doing a bad job. There's going to be death or there's going to be a likelihood of death, something like that. And
By the way, so far you're doing a wonderful job of laying it out, but just so I can stick a pin in it, because I'm going to come back and talk about this. He says, President Trump says a day ago, and that becomes important.
Huge. It's everything.
Yeah.
It's everything.
Well, it is, but I'm going to give you a countervailing or contrasting point at a certain point.
Okay.
Right? Let's go on.
So Trump says this, and Newsom is enraged and says Donald Trump is a bold-faced liar, that they never had that discussion a day ago, nor did Donald Trump say you're doing a bad job, the city, there's going to be death in the city. None of that ever happened. They did not have that conversation. Donald Trump is a liar. So then Donald Trump gives John Roberts of Fox News a call log showing that there was a phone call. The problem with the call log is that it says June 7th. It doesn't say June 9th. And again, the reason these dates are so important is that the disturbances didn't occur until after the actual phone call on June 7th. So Donald Trump wouldn't have talked about any of that because it hadn't happened yet. So
yeah, but see, this is where I'm going to push back a little bit. Number one, it's a day ago. Well, you're the president of the United States. And by the way, you and I, interestingly enough, were arguing about something completely related. Actually a domestic violence temporary restraining order against Levin, which was issued on me. And yeah, Levin, meaning Harvey Levin, that was issued on me by a family member that I couldn't talk to you. And if you had asked me, I might have said that happened a day ago or 2 days ago. I mean, that to me, that seems to be, that can't be the crux.
Well, here's the thing. It doesn't really matter as to Donald Trump because it matters as to Fox News. So let me just play. Let me play.
Yes, please do.
This is what happened in the Oval Office on June 10th.
Mr. President, when is the last time you spoke with Governor Newsom?
A day ago. Called him up to tell him, got to do a better job. He's doing a bad job, causing a lot of death and a lot of potential death. If we didn't send out the National Guard, and last time we gave him a little additional help, you would have, Los Angeles would be burning right now. Los Angeles would be not a lot different than what you saw take place in California and Los Angeles just a little while ago.
Okay, so.
By the way, what do you think he's referring to there?
He's referring to the disturbances because they had happened by June 10th. They didn't happen on June 7th.
He said a little while ago. I think he's referring to looting during the fires.
But none of that started until June 8th. See, that's according
to
the law.
From the fires.
No. Well, okay, whatever. The fact is,
well, you say whatever, but I think
I don't think it matters, and I'll tell you why in a minute. But I don't think.
By the way, this is a guy who has sued Fox News. So
okay, but the reason it doesn't matter is Donald Trump's not being sued here, Mark. Okay?
I understand.
Okay.
I understand.
So here's the deal. So Donald Trump then gives John Roberts this document, and let's put the document.
Well, he does it because don't skip over one thing. Newsom comes out after that and basically calls him out.
He calls him a liar. He says, Donald Trump's a liar. This never happened. I never had that phone call. We never talked about that. Now, let me show you this document. This is the document that was produced. And it says right there in bold letters, if you're looking at this on YouTube, June 7th, 2025. So clear as day, the document that Donald Trump produced was not the day before the Oval Office meeting, June 10th. It was June 7th, 3 days before that. It matters. So anyway, that's the document. Then Jesse Waters, who is the host of one of the Fox News shows, does a piece on all of this, and this piece is the basis of the lawsuit. Here's what Jesse Waters said.
Gavin's giving folks room to riot just like tampon. Same thing happened in the summer of love. Democrat governors let violence fester until finally Trump restored order. Trump's not waiting around this time. He says if it wasn't for him, L.A. would be up in smoke.
Called him up to tell him, got to do a better job. He's doing a bad job, causing a lot of death and a lot of potential death. If we didn't send out the National Guard, and last night we gave him a little additional help, you would have, Los Angeles would be burning right now. The radical left, it's usually radical left, and it's usually governors that are Democrat, and they don't want to call them in. They don't want to save lives. They don't want to save property. They don't want to call them in. I don't know what it is.
Newsom responded, and he said there wasn't a phone call. He said Trump never called him, not even a voicemail, he said. But John Roberts got Trump's call logs, and it shows Trump called him late Friday night, and they talked for 16 minutes. Why would Newsom lie and claim Trump never called him? Why would he do that? Gavin could have called up the Guard Friday night and could have stopped the violence and saved millions of dollars in damages. But we're now on our 5th day of mayhem, and Newsom's suing Trump to send the Guard home.
So here's what the lawsuit is about. That when you look at the Fox story that Jesse Waters did, according to Newsom, and what you just saw, they edited out the words "a day ago." So it makes it look like, yeah, Newsom did have the phone call. They put June 7th up, but the day ago becomes very relevant because of the time frame here when the riots or when the disturbances started. So by editing out the words "a day ago," what Newsom is saying is they made it look like Donald Trump actually did have a phone call that Gavin Newsom denied having, whereas the reality is Gavin Newsom did have that call, just not the day before Donald Trump said it happened. So that's why they're suing. He's suing Fox because he's saying Fox News called him a liar and knew it wasn't true, and they edited out the words "a day ago" to make their case.
And I think this, I hate to say it, but I think this lawsuit is dead on arrival. I don't think it gets past whatever the version that Delaware has of an anti-slap, and I believe they do. And an anti-slap, for those who don't know, is you basically will say, or they will say, Fox News is going to say, no, this is part of reporting, that the one day doesn't make a difference, that the fact is he was denying a phone call. They put up the date of the phone call, and that's good enough.
So let me ask you something about that. With an anti-slap, you draw a line if there's intentional malice, if there's malice, right?
Correct. I mean, the traditional New York Times versus Sullivan, you've got to show it. Fox News, I think, has got an issue there, but I'm putting that aside because
I don't think you can. I don't think you can. I mean, look, I'm not gonna argue one side or the other. But Fox News, just so you know, I want to say this: Fox News did give us a statement, and they said that Gavin Newsom is trying to suppress free speech, that they will vigorously defend this, and they are standing by what they said. So I want to make that very clear. Fox News is adamant that there is no basis for this lawsuit, as you said.
Well, one of the things the calculations that lawyers do when they're suing, whether it's Fox News or whether it's the New York Times, Brian Friedman did in Baldoni, me with LA Times or various other things, you always have to worry about navigating the anti-SLAPP, because the anti-SLAPP statute has been expanded at this point, I think, basically beyond recognition. Anti-SLAPP was originally designed to basically help people in a developer context. It was originally where people were petitioning in their communities, and they were saying, look, the large developers are trying to beat us down and not letting us, and they're suing us into oblivion when we complain about these developments that are happening. It's now been expanded to the point where it's almost unrecognizable, and that's one of the reasons that you find these lawsuits not gaining a lot of traction. Having said that, at the same time, Donald Trump has gained a lot of traction in these lawsuits because he has the ability to cripple some of these people, whether it's, you know this, Harvey, the Paramount merger. I've got a case right now with Chris LaCivita where we're suing the Daily Beast, and the Daily Beast, I think, crossed the line, and I'm sure they will attempt to go down the road of an anti-slap. But the anti-slap, I think, needs to, as most things in the law, the pendulum needs to swing back.
Okay.
I'm not so sure that in this case that Gavin Newsom is going to get past an anti-slap.
So let me just say that Donald Trump has made claims, and against ABC, he got, I believe, $16 million.
Yeah, 15 or 16 million dollars.
I believe with CBS there was a tentative settlement of 10 million. So he has settled cases exactly like this. Just the shoe, it's not really on the other foot because Trump's not being sued. But let me just play the game with you for a second. Suppose I'm the judge, okay? And you're representing Fox News, okay? And maybe you're trying to get this thing knocked down on anti-slap, okay? So, counselor, you know that if this were intentional to falsely accuse somebody of lying, knowing that he wasn't a liar, if it wasn't intentional, how do you explain that 3 key words were consciously edited out of the tape the other day?
Let me tell you how.
How?
What they normally do is you have to make, it's a news organization that is reporting on news events. They have put up the call record. The call record was not monkeyed with. It has the date. It's got the time. In fact, it's even got a previous call on the call record. And number 2, the bigger problem that they've got is that it really doesn't matter at the end of the day whether it was 1 day or 2 days. By the way, he's the president of the United States. He's not sitting there doing a cognition test on whether he talked to them.
Well, they get into his cognition. Counselor, they get into Donald Trump's cognitive abilities by saying maybe he didn't remember days. But what Gavin Newsom says is they never had a discussion of doing a bad job. I know you're saying it's about the fire. Gavin Newsom says that wasn't said, but hold on.
I think clearly a logical interpretation, a circumstantial interpretation, is that he's talking about, I had to already fly out to LA once before. He had that famous press conference where he was sitting next to Karen Bass, where he was talking about the fact that LA had not been equipped at the time, and he's saying, I've already come and cleaned up one mess before, and now I have to come and clean up another mess.
Really?
In LA.
Okay, Counselor, let's play that Donald Trump soundbite again, and I want to ask you a question about it, if that's your position, that he's talking about the fires.
Mr. President, when is the last time you spoke with Governor Newsom?
A day ago. Called him up to tell him, got to do a better job. He's doing a bad job, causing a lot of death and a lot of potential death. If we didn't send out the National Guard, and last night we gave him a little additional help, you would have, Los Angeles would be burning right now. Los Angeles would be not a lot different than what you saw take place in California and Los Angeles just a little while ago.
Counselor. He is not talking about the fires. He is talking about calling the National Guard out for the disturbances on the streets of Los Angeles, and you know that.
I do not know that.
What is he talking about when he says the National Guard? He's doing this the day after there were disturbances.
I'm telling you, do you remember when we had the argument before where you were arguing that it was yes, I was going to say, where you were arguing that it was the end of the nation as we know it, and he was going to create a civil rights war or a civil war. And I was telling you, calm down, it's not going to happen. I think clearly he's referring to a time period when he came out there before, and he famously did the press conference, and he was saying we're going to clear this up. We're going to send out, he said, and a little bit more. What the little bit more was that I'm sure he was referring to was the Army Corps of Engineers.
He said National Guard, Counselor, he said
and
National Guard.
A little bit more. So what is the little bit more? It was the Army Corps of
Oh my
National.
God. Are you really going to die on that hill that you think he's
I
talking
don't
about
know
the
that it's a
January
die on that
fires?
hill, but I don't think he's talking about the disturbances
Oh,
at that
please. It was a day after the disturbances. That's why people were talking to him in the Oval Office, Mark.
If you take a look at that, it's susceptible of two interpretations.
No, it's not.
And if it's susceptible to two interpretations, by the way, it's never going to get to that point because Gavin Newsom's.
But it's not about Donald Trump. That's the point. It's about so I'm going to
make a little friendly.
I'm going to get back to my question. Why were the words the day before, a day ago? Why were the words a day ago edited out?
And I will answer that with a question. Why did he say and a little bit more? What was the little bit more?
No, he said a day ago. He said a day.
The last time when it would have burned, and he said the word burned, and he said a little bit more.
A little bit more what?
That was the Army Corps of Engineers who were doing.
Why were the words a day? Why were the words a day ago?
A day ago, because he's, as president of the United States, I would assume, by the way.
Forget about Donald Trump. Why did Fox News edit out the words a day ago? I'm asking that as the judge.
Oh, as the judge, I don't know, but they made a choice for time. Is what they made they can't play the entire thing because they've got time limits.
So that half second.
They wanted it to be punchier, but if they were trying to mislead, why would they put up the call record?
Because I can answer it. Well,
why?
Well, I'm the judge here, so should I?
Well, you're not going to answer it.
Here's what I'll posit, Counselor. So it would seem that if they take the words a day ago out, it all gets conflated, and June 7th is up there, and all it shows for everybody looking is that, there must have been a phone call. Donald Trump showing a phone call, so Gavin Newsom must be lying.
Well, look, if it says a day ago and I find a record, if I'm telling you, Harvey, I talked to you 3 times this week.
It didn't say a day ago. They edited that part out.
Okay. And if it says June 7th and they're broadcasting on what day was that aired? What day was Jesse Waters?
June 10th or 11th. I think 10th.
No harm, no foul. That's not going to, in my opinion, this lawsuit is dead on arrival.
Because
it's immaterial whether he says a day ago, and it's just as likely that he's referring to the previous time that he had to come out to California and deal with the fact that the authorities had basically been ill-equipped to deal with the fires.
Can you actually pretend to be Gavin Newsom's lawyer for a second?
Yes, I could do that.
Okay.
If I'm Gavin Newsom's lawyer, I'm going to say,
no. I'm going to ask you. I'm going to ask you a question.
Yes.
So, Counselor, with all due respect, the words politician and liar are often synonymous with a large number of people in the voting public. So, what exactly are his damages? Because people have called him that for various other things. I'm not saying he is or isn't, but the word liar seems to be white noise in politics. So how is he suing for $787 million for a term that is thrown around very casually in the political arena?
Well, you would be arguing that this is core political speech and that you would be suggesting that my $787 million prayer for damages has some basis in reality, as opposed to the fact that it was all theatrics, and that's why I filed.
You can't even hypothetically take Newsom's side. This is unbelievable.
Because the whole thing is theatrics. It's a joke.
I asked you to just take a side for a second.
Because contrary to what many people say, sometimes there are positions that I'm not going to take just because for argument's sake. All you need to know is he's asking for $787 million. Is it funny? Yes, it's funny. Is it theatrics and political? Yes. Is calling somebody a liar in politics core political speech?
That's what I'm saying.
Abso-freaking-lutely. So that's why this case is never going to get anywhere.
Well, and it's not just that. It's that that word liar is like a pronoun. I mean, it just goes over your head. I mean, who isn't called a liar in politics?
Every newspaper in America, or virtually everyone of record, they've got a fact checker. They talk about how many lies this politician or that politician tells.
Right.
And to your point, and this is where we agree, I just doesn't move the needle. And I will stick with the fact that it's theatrics.
Okay. So look, we are doing this right at the close of closing arguments in Diddy. And I know you can't talk about Diddy. Am I allowed to just say something about it? Just because how do we not?
Yeah, well, before, when I was referencing the DVTROL,
Yep.
and you acted like you didn't know what that meant.
Yep.
DVTRO is a domestic violence temporary restraining order. In this case, the L is for Levin. And I was told under no uncertain terms that a woman that I live with had said that I could not talk to Harvey Levin. And did I not abide by that DVTRO for at least 96 hours this week?
The woman that you lived with, not live with,
Yes,
not your
exactly.
wife.
Exactly. I'm talking about the co-counsel on the case, who I'm subject to the friends and family gag order, but that does not mean
How does
that
your
I
daughter?
can't.
How does your daughter have that kind of control over you?
Well, do you want to tell our viewers
No, we shouldn't. I don't think we should.
You've called me.
Okay, I don't want. Okay, hold on. Let's.
Yeah.
No, this is just gonna. This is gonna open a whole can of worms. Let's not do that,
Why?
please.
Why? You're not going to say what you've been calling me this week? The name? The pejorative?
Okay, I called you a bitch.
A little bitch.
Yeah.
Call me call me a little bitch repeatedly this week. That became, hey, little bitch, answer the phone. I mean, I've got the messages. Hey, you little bitch. I mean, you know how many times I heard that this week? Anyway, I want to hear your comment. As we are recording this, the case is all over but the shouting.
Right.
And it's in the jury's hands. And
Not yet. It'll be on the jury's hands Monday.
correct. And well, as we're recording this, it's right there on the precipice.
Right.
And I want to hear your comment. I'm not going to engage, but you can.
Okay. I mean, just briefly. So what really struck me is, the closing arguments are everything in these cases because you have all this disparate, this disparate information about racketeering and sex trafficking and all these things, arson and kidnapping and burglary and fights and whatnot. And the job of the prosecutor at the end of the case is to put it all together and tell a powerful story. And the story they told was that Diddy acted as a king and over his fiefdom, and he had his servants going out and committing various criminal acts that all kind of aligned with the racketeering of his life. They didn't look at him as a racketeer of drugs or being a hitman or anything like that. It was really the racketeer of his life. And the prosecution was saying, all you have to do is show two elements. You could show kidnapping, for example, and arson. Well, that's enough to convict him. You could show a burglary and hold an extortion. That would be enough. So on the racketeering, that's what they argued. What I found interesting was when they argued sex trafficking having to show consent. And they're saying that Cassie and Jane, the two alleged victims, never consented to all of it. And all you have to do is find one example where they didn't. And they gave various examples. But what I found interesting was that they were saying that Diddy created a lifestyle where he was paying their rent, paying certain expenses, doing things for them, and then threatening to yank all of it if they didn't engage in these freak-offs. So that was their position. Mark Agnifilo on the defense side took that same set of facts and he became a one-man show. We're doing this on Friday, and he did it today. And it was a real one-man show. And Mark Agnifilo started by looking at this jury and saying that you could be next. This is bedroom police. They are going into your bedroom and they are trying to charge you with crimes about what happens behind closed doors. And this has been a case where they have ballyhooed baby oil and Astroglide in front of this jury, in front of you. And Astroglide and baby oil have nothing to do with putting people in prison, yet they've been talking about it over and over and over again. They have gone into Diddy's bedroom and they have taken two women who had relationships with him, including Cassie, who had an 11-year relationship with him, who repeatedly texted him how she loved freak-offs. And in terms of taking rent money and everything else, well, it's part of the game. It's transactional. That, yeah, they took it gladly and they knew the game and that they willingly participated as part of that game. What I really found bold on Agnifilo's part was that he said that, well, Cassie's the winner in this and Diddy's the loser because she got $30 million in settlements after going to a civil lawyer and Diddy's in jail. So welcome to modern day love, folks, because that's the way it works these days. So I think he was really trying to create cynicism. And the final thing I found interesting was I interviewed Mark Agnifilo 7 months ago for one of our Tubi documentaries. And Mark Agnifilo gave this exact same speech to me that he gave to the jury 7 months ago. So none of that was altered by the case. And he did the whole bedroom police. He did the lube and and the baby oil and all of that. He made the same argument and he did it fiercely. But I just found it so interesting that he was unwavering for the entire 7 months.
And what I will tell you is by this time next week, it will be the 4th of July. And I'm predicting that we will have a verdict before then.
Really?
Yeah, we will have I think that normally my rule is Friday on cases like this, Fridays at 3:00. I think because Friday is a holiday, you'll see Thursday at sometime is the over and under time. If they go past that, I'll comment. And I have so much to say, Harvey, I can't even tell you. I will unburden. I will tell you what has been next week at this time.
And by the way, he will not tell me even privately what he's so scared of his daughter.
What did you call me? What was the name?
You're a bitch.
Okay, little bitch. You called me. Yes. Thank you, Harvey. I will see you.
Wait a minute. I got to ask you one other question.
Yes.
You say a verdict. There is a chance of a hung jury, right?
I will look, by the way, I always explain this in voir dire to jurors. There are 3 options. It's guilty, not guilty, and a hung jury. All are valid. There's nothing that says you must come to a verdict. The only thing you must do as a juror is you must consider the evidence. You must not look at the clock and say, I don't want to come back here, so I'm going to change my mind. You've got to make your decision. You have to listen to the other jurors. But if you're convinced, the beauty of the system, the beauty of the jury trial, you want to talk about democracy, the only thing that stands between us and tyranny is the jury system. And the jury system works when there is a hung jury, just as much as a guilt or a not guilty.
So if the jury comes back Thursday afternoon and says, just theoretically, says we're hopelessly deadlocked, does this judge say, okay, or does the judge read through it and say, I know the way juries work. They want that 3-day weekend unburdened. So no, I'm not going to accept that. Come back on Monday and keep deliberating.
There's a whole spectrum of things judges can do. Some judges will do what's called an Allen charge, the dynamite charge. It's illegal in the state courts in California, meaning it's unconstitutional. But in federal court, it survives. I have been in federal jury trials where jurors have said, I can think famously of one with George Howard in Arkansas, where he would not give a Allen charge because he did not believe that he thought it was coercive. And a lot of times judges will ask, what is the split? How many votes? I've even had cases in California where rather than give an Allen charge because that's unconstitutional, where a jury has been hung. I remember one case in particular where the judge said, asked the jurors, would you like to have the lawyers re-argue for 20 minutes? And we re-argued. And the jurors were still hung after that. So the judge has got quite an arsenal to pick from, depending on how many votes, how deadlocked it is, and whether it's a genuine split.
You know what? You know what we should do next week if it's over? I think your daughter should come on Two Angry Men podcast.
Wow, Two Angry Men. Well, was she on?
She was on. No, she was on.
Yes.
She was on before the gag order. But we should bring your daughter on. And I want to just find out, how does she have such unbelievable control over her father?
I will see you next week.
See you next week.
Bye.